Hey guys, Tim here with Two Feathers Survival, coming to you for this episode from beautiful upstate New York. These woods I grew up in as a child and actually really miss these type of woods. The woodland here are far different from Charleston, South Carolina, where I'm currently living. The foliage is different, the trees are different. The climate is definitely better suited for living in the woods or some sort of a long-term sustainment. This is a type of an area that I would try to get to just because of the vast natural resources. On our hike today, we've seen a whitetail. We are in the middle of deer season this time of year up here in New York State. But the other things that I was noticing are the small things to make fire with, water supplies that are immediate in the area. Took a little bit of a trail off the main trail here and got off into the off beaten path. Found birch trees. Great natural fire tinder. This stuff is like gasoline of the woods. And right around the other side of this is a down tree just loaded with chaga. Chaga is great not only for making teas, medicinal style teas, but it is also a wonderful fire starter. So right here in this very small area, if I take that pack rat style mentality and grab these things as I'm seeing them, as I'm making my hike through the woods, that makes my fire lighting ability a lot easier as I get to camp or later on in the day where I want to have that hot cup of tea or cocoa or whatever it is that we're going to have. Come with me, explore the woods here today. All right guys, like I said, as you make your way through the woods, finding things like this birch tree is just a great natural fire starter. The bark of this tree is very rich in oils, and this is like gasoline of the woods. If you're out and you see things like this, and down the way a little bit further, I saw another plant, milkweed, that's actually gone to seed because we're in the fall stages in New York here. Both of those are great flash style tinders that will take a spark from a ferrocenium rod very quickly. I don't need to kill the whole tree and cut a big patch of this out. All I need to do is just this birch, this bark of the birch tree that's here on the side. There's enough for me to collect right here, and that way I don't do any damage to the tree. If I take a big cut out of this and leave this as an open scar, this tree is soon going to die. And there's one not far from me here that clearly was killed by woodpeckers digging into that tree, and I'll show you that here in just a second, because there's something else on that tree that I'd really like you to see, and that's chaga. But birch is a great natural fire starter. If you see this, grab it. Take that possum mentality, put it down into your cargo pockets, into a backpack, keep a plastic baggie is what I do with my backpack. That way I can throw these type of materials in there, and then when it comes time later on in your hike to make fire, I've got the base components of it, because then there's enough down timber throughout this wood line here that I have. But if I don't have this, and I don't have matches or lighters or anything like that, and I'm only going to use some sort of a primitive striking system to make the fire, then I've got to have this to make sure that I have a way to get those sparks to land into something that'll catch and burn. All right guys, well this is a little bit of the bark off from the birch tree just behind me here. And I want to just show you real quick what this actually does. Like I said, this stuff is really gasoline of the woods. I'm just taking rough this up just a bit. Not going to do a lot. I'm not making a fire. I'm just going to show you that very quickly, if all I had was just my survival knife with a striker rod on it, this stuff is truly a life-saving thing. So what this episode is probably going to become is kind of a hike through the woods and actually show you how to find some of these natural plants that I can utilize to actually make fire with. So I'll do one here with the knife and the striker rod. I'll show you this from a bit farther away, then I'll move the camera in a little bit closer and then show you this as well. Striker rods, if you don't have one of these on your knife, you're really missing out. You really need to consider putting that on your sheath, getting a leather sheath made for you that you can actually have this with you at all times is really a very good thing to have. So I'm going to try to give hopefully one or two strikes here. Did y'all have rain lately, Bill?
Yeah, it's been pretty wet.
So that first bunch really didn't want to take off, guys. So what I'm going to do, use the edge of my knife, kind of just rough up some very small shavings here. Try to put that down here. Not wanting to go, should have gone quick. There we go. So I had just that right spark kind of drop down in there in the perfect place, but if you see how this is burning right now, and I'm going to actually put this one out. I'm going to redo this here in a second. You saw that black smoke, and what that's saying is that this is very rich in oily resins, and that's what actually catches the spark and makes this gasoline of the woods. It's very good to know. I did have to work at it a little bit to get this to light, but it's really not that big of a deal because it did light. Rough it up a little bit, get some further preparation on it. That'll cause it to start right off. And be a good woodsman and put my knife away. That way nobody gets injured on a blade being left out and falls on it or anything like that. I want to point out something here, something about tinder. Processing tinder down to its smallest and simplest form is often the best practice. It will more easily catch the spark. I get frustrated with all of the, what I call, one-take wonders that I see on the internet in different TV shows. It would be truly easy for me to edit all of this down, make it look clean and simple. But that simply is not the case in survival. The case in survival is often a hard lesson. In this next scene, after getting home and watching the footage that I had recorded, I realized that I am properly refer to horseshoe fungus as chaga. They're two totally different mushrooms. I also realized that I should have taken the time and shown you how to process the horseshoe fungus down to get the amidue layer out. This too is something that survival teaches us. Something so small, and if I missed, it could have gone so wrong. It's a good thing that I wasn't grabbing a mushroom to eat. As I say later, I'm not a mushroom expert. I need to learn more about mushrooms. This is what survival teaches us, is where we can go wrong, or bushcraft, or primitive skills, whatever you want to call this. I guess this winter, I've got a project already cut out for me. Learn more about mushrooms and how to utilize them properly. All right, guys, so here's this is another birch tree, and you can tell just there's signs of very heavy woodpecker intrusion into this tree. I'm sure that's probably why this has died and fallen over, but it's this here that I want you to kind of take note of. It's called different things in different places. Some will call it horseshoe style fungus. Some sometimes refer to it as chaga. But what this is another great, it's almost like charcoal. It's been pretty rainy here, and something I should have probably mentioned to you is if you have tinders that are kind of marginally wet, grab them anyways. Put them down in your pocket, the inside pocket that's close to your skin. As you're walking around throughout the day, hopefully that will dry out, and it should dry out in about 20 to 30 minutes. So don't overlook something, take it with you. Chaga is definitely something that you want to learn to identify, or horseshoe fungus, whatever you want to call this. Usually you'll find it on birch trees, and it's usually found on downed birch trees. This is like a charcoal. It will grab a spark very easy as well. You can take and shave this up very fine with a knife, and this is another great fire tinder material to start your campfires with. This is something that you could easily grab off from a tree, throw it in your backpack or knapsack or whatever it is that you're bringing out into the woods, and have that for later use. If you've got a sunny day and Right now it's not. This is our typical New York, northern New York style weather. It's just this gray cloud bank pretty much from here out until springtime. But if you had sun and I had a way to get this to dry out, or even drying it next to a fire that I can start, great way to extend a coal, or having this to actually grab sparks from a striker rod of some sort, catching those sparks and then turn it into a coal. So very good thing. Definitely look for this on the side of birch trees, and there's just a bunch of it right here in this immediate area, and I can kind of move this around and show you some of this. There's a couple different styles of it right on the same tree. And in fact, we also found something else called dryad saddle, which is another mushroom. And guys, let me caution you on something. None of these mushrooms, I'm no expert in mushrooms by any stretch of the imagination. I learned to identify the ones that I can use. Dryad saddle is another one that I can use for if it's still in its wet stage. I could make bandages out of that. It's very good for that, but it's also good for stropping a knife because it's got that kind of leathery feel to it. But you could utilize that in the woods for a makeshift knife strop to sharpen a knife that might be dulling on you. Just because I know those few mushrooms and a few others, I never really would mess with them. They really don't give you enough nutritional value. If you happen to really be into mushrooms and you've had an expert show you how to properly utilize those, well then great for you. That's a skill set that you've got. I just am not comfortable enough doing it. Maybe as the years go by here, I'll become more and more comfortable. This one's easy. Dryad saddle is easy. I'm going to show you another one here on a fallen tree that's also very easily identifiable, and that's just another version of horseshoe for chaga, or whatever you want to call that style of mushroom. All right, guys, well, here's something else that I don't get a chance really to see a whole lot in the south. This is milkweed. This seed pod is just really starting to kind of break open. Classification of this as far as flammability is a lot like a cotton-based type product. It is a flash tinder. This stuff will go up really quick, and if they're still contained in the seed pod with all this closed, I've got a great natural carrier for this as well. So I am going to take just a bit of this. I'll let the rest of the plant do what it does. And I'll show you how easily this stuff goes up. So if you think about this, guys, earlier I had a little bit of a hard time getting the birch bark to actually ignite because of how wet this environment, this local environment is. Something like this milkweed seed can really help get that style, or that other source of fire material going, because this will go up so fast it catches that spark really quickly, and then it will light the other birch bark material. So this is definitely something to keep your eye out for as you continue your hikes. Let me move the camera and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. All right, guys, so again, I'm gonna just utilize the striker rod on the sheath of my knife here. This should go up with not much work at all. And there you go. So again, if we had that real stubborn material, knowing how to identify this and to see it and find it is going to be a great addition to keeping some sort of a striker rod in your kit at all times. That stuff is a flash tinder and it goes up very quickly. So now that we know that this material goes up, if you look for those other cottony kind of fluffy materials, those are going to go up quickly and easily, just like that did as well. I will return to these woods. It's a beautiful property with vast resources. I'll come back and take the time to learn more lessons of bushcraft or survival. As Tolkien often had written, all who wander are not lost.